one of my two first-hour guests who has a lot of experience when it comes to college campuses as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Recruitment and Communications Director for the College Fix. Ladies and gentlemen, first-time guest, Mr. Conor Coutts. Conor, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good to be on.
All right, Conor, before we dive into our primary topic that we wanted to discuss today, tell everybody a little bit about the College Fix and what's going on there, just in case somebody's not familiar.
Absolutely. So the College Fix is a national news website dedicated to covering higher ed from a conservative perspective, but really a lot of what we do is covering underreported stories that the MSM will not, series of higher ed topics. And we have college reporters, student reporters, over 70 of them across the country. And we also have a full-time staff and editors. And one of our real goals is to train students in journalism to be true journalists, write well, be accurate, be a counter to the MSM, and in the 11 years or so we've been around, we have over 100 alumni who have either been reporters or fellows for us in the media, often in the conservative realm. We do stories daily, and everyone can go to thecollegefix.com to read our content and to stay up to date on campus news.
Great. All right. Obviously, one of the strange things, or at least it seems strange to me, and it's because my mind does not work like a leftist, but we have seen this major push in academia to kind of move in the direction of self-resegregation. And now we're seeing this major push as well for what they're referring to as anti-racism, which is essentially racism in reverse. They just look for some cutesy name that they feel like doesn't sound as threatening. And we're constantly being told that's not really a thing that's happening, but we see evidence of it all the time. And a story that you guys covered this past week, in fact, pretty well demonstrates that there is a significant amount of this still going on, as there was a number of black students that were engaging on a chat platform where they were sharing a lot of their favorite insults directed primarily at white people. Tell us a little bit about the story.
Sure. So the story originated out of Auburn University, that large school famous for their football and their competition with Bama. But in this case, there was a group chat that we came to find out actually included hundreds of students. It's worth noting that it was not associated with the college per se, just some students. What we found out is that the students are from multiple universities. It was actually first kind of whistleblowed or revealed to Turning Point by a student at Auburn. And he included some screenshots and things like this. And perhaps it was, meant to be maybe somewhat humorous, but it really includes some egregious names like maggots, vermin, shaved rats, pale face, drywall, walking ranch, some things that I've never even heard of or could even think of, all referencing white people. Now, this is largely, at least originated as black students doing it. It's hard to tell or verify perhaps the race of every of the hundreds of students in it, but that's how it started, and that's what the purpose is, to have racist and derogatory names for Caucasian students. Auburn said it was looking into it. They're following their protocol or whatever, and having the Office of Affirmative Action and whatnot look into it. What the concern is from Turning Point and kind of at large from people who follow these things is that if the shoe was on the other foot, if these racist terms were directed towards black students or students of color by white students. It would, be a viral story, very much likely, and just a guess based on previous occurrences, students would probably be expelled or suspended. So the issue isn't like a tit for tat. Racism is immoral, and in the case of certain circumstances where we've seen on college campus and discrimination, it can actually be illegal. But it's just to be consistent, and so it didn't seem like the level of outrage is there. It's conservative sources kind of had to dig, and we certainly did to get the bottom of this, and found out that it's a very large chat and a lot of dozens of racist terms for whites in this chat.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn, of course, acknowledged they'd actually been investigating it for nearly a month before Turning Point USA first started talking about it. And I do think it comes down to a case where these people felt like they were in a safe space. It did kind of seem like some of it was just meant to be humorous. Some of it did get pretty nasty, though. I was looking down some of these lists. I got to give kudos for some creativity on a few of them, and some others I'm just like, that's pretty twisted. But you're right. It's not even a case where this is a big deal because somebody decided to do it. It becomes a big deal because there is that two-tier view of what's acceptable and what's not. There's a wink and a nod here, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. And it really does push us to a position where we need to understand that if you really are concerned about actual racism, you don't heal the divide by engaging in the same behavior in the other direction. It's a message that Martin Luther King Jr. himself really tried to get out as much as anyone else did, and once upon a time thought to be the thought leader, and it doesn't even seem like he has a place in the messaging today. There are some people who are making an awful lot of money, therefore have a lot of investment in keeping us divided. And the fear is that if this is allowed and permitted on college campuses, that divide is actually being widened and deepened, as opposed to getting to a point where we can actually have a society where we understand we have more in common than we have different.
Absolutely. And what we have seen, and this, in some capacity, the students have their free speech, and Auburn is supporting them, have been investigating and following their protocol. However, you can't help but think that it, from everything we've seen, not necessarily at Auburn, just at large, and how there's a kowtow to the media and expectations. It would be different if the shoes on the other foot. And, regardless of who's facing racism, it's wrong and should be treated and handled the same way, regardless of who the victim and the perpetrator is, of those things. And the racial politics and the inconsistencies, especially on college campuses, is pretty pervasive these days.
Yeah, it really is astounding. We've talked about, I and my audience have talked a great deal in the past in regards to why the leftists, the globalist leftists, the folks that really want to get in and destroy our constitutional republic because the Constitution is an impediment to their power, while they focused on trying to start controlling what happens on college campuses because they realize it's a good place to start indoctrination. And now it seems like they've realized that if they start targeting kids earlier and earlier, that it makes that just that much easier. During your time doing this, not just following this story, but how much would you say that college professors that don't buy in to woke ideologies are still under pressure to knuckle under and give in, sometimes partially because of students and sometimes partially because of higher-ups in the administration?
Oh, I think that's very common. In fact, you just see it everywhere. And something that I would point out that relates to that is what some call diversicrats, right? These DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are, have these huge budgets, these offices that want to promote diversity, which really, becomes kind of meaningless. They just want to wokeify everything. But they have these administrators, especially large public universities, that they spend their budgets are millions of dollars. And I think it was Ohio State and schools like that, and Michigan had over 100 of these bureaucrats who do diversity. So they're the ones who are, pushing a lot of these policies and things like that and making sure faculty comply. So, yes, there's certainly a pressure to do it, and people have left academia because of it, and a fair amount of them aren't necessarily conservative, but they're what you might call classical liberal, but they're focused on wanting to teach students how to learn how to think, not what to think, and not to indoctrinate them. And they have found themselves quite lonely at universities, even though that is what higher education is built for. And that was the intention. It wasn't to virtue signal and, to be these kinds of money mills, and especially really expensive. And they certainly don't need to be this expensive, in part because of these how much money are spent on things like this. But yes, and the professors will also speak out, do get punished. We cover them a lot, and sometimes they really can be good news stories, because it is heartening to know that there are professors who maintain their independence and will stand up for free speech, will stand up for, religious rights, and, proud to be conservative, stand up for intellectual diversity. So there is a good element of those who resist when they're able to survive at their campuses, or at least try to.
Yeah, it is a shame that there are those kind of pressures. It's almost as if the purpose of college has been forgotten by those. Conor, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I greatly appreciate it. We're definitely going to have to get back together again soon, because there's certainly no shortage of stories to follow. Real quick before we let you go, though, please remind everybody where they can find the College Fix online, and let them know any other things you would like to share, any other websites, and if you invite people to follow you on social media, or if you just want them following the College Fix, what those handles would be.
Sure. So, again, go on thecollegefix.com. You'll find all our stories there. And on the top right-hand corner, there's a button that you can subscribe to our newsletter. We just send it out twice a week. We don't bombard you with emails, and you'll get our top, most important stories twice a week in your inbox. There's opportunities to, for merchandise, to donate, things like that. But the best thing is to keep updated with our content and to read it. We're on all the social medias. On Twitter, we're at College Fix, and that we're the College Fix on most of the other ones. And if you do a search of that just on the internet, you can find them. So a lot of opportunities to keep in touch. And of course, if you have any news tips, things like that, or if you're a college student or know one who's interested in journalism, there's an opportunity to sign up to write for us as well on our website.
All right, Conor, you keep up all the great work over there, sir. Thank you much. Godspeed. God bless. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Likewise. Thank you very much.